Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. We all have questions. Is God real? Where did he come from? Why do I sometimes lose my faith? Why does it feel like my prayers bounce off the ceiling? And if God is there, why does he allow me to hurt? You're not alone in asking these questions. Every believer at some point wrestles with them. Even the giants of faith in Scripture, Abraham, Moses, David, had moments of doubt. That should encourage us. Doubt doesn't disqualify you. It's an invitation to dig deeper. Let's start with the biggest one. Is God real? The Bible opens with certainty. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Genesis 1:1. Notice it doesn't begin with an argument. It begins with a declaration. God is. Before anything else existed, he was. But maybe you've asked, where did he come from? Psalm 90 verse 2 answers, before the mountains were born, or you brought forth the whole world, from everlasting to everlasting, you are God. He had no beginning and he will have no end. Our minds struggle with that because everything we know has a start and a finish. But God exists outside of time. Imagine a painter standing outside of the canvas he just created. He's not bound by it. That's God outside of time, holding eternity in his hands. Now let's talk about why we lose faith. Maybe you've been praying for something and it hasn't happened. Maybe tragedy struck your life and you wonder, if God is real, why didn't he stop this? Maybe the silence feels unbearable. Even the disciples struggled with faith. In Matthew 14, Peter stepped out of the boat to walk on water toward Jesus. For a moment he did the impossible, but when he saw the wind and the waves, fear overtook him and he began to sink. Jesus caught him and said, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" Here's the truth. Faith does not mean the absence of questions. Faith means trusting God even when questions remain. Think of faith like a bridge. When you can't see the other side of the canyon, the bridge carries you over. Faith carries you when your eyes can't make sense of the path. Sometimes we think losing faith means we've failed God, but Scripture shows us the opposite. Mark 9:24 tells of a man who cried out to Jesus, "I believe, help my unbelief." And Jesus healed his son. God is not threatened by our doubts. He meets us in them. Why is faith so crucial? Hebrews 11:6 says, "And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards." Those who earnestly seek him, faith is the connection point. It's the currency of heaven. It's the way we reach for the unseen. Think about electricity. You can't see it, but you know it's real because the lights turn on. Faith works the same way. You don't always see God, but when you trust him, you see the effects. Peace that makes no sense, joy in the middle of pain, doors opening that no man could open. Let's use another metaphor. Faith is like planting a seed. When you put it in the ground, it looks like nothing is happening. But under the soil, roots are forming, growth is beginning, life is taking shape. Just because you don't see it yet doesn't mean God isn't working. And faith is like breathing. You don't always think about it, but you rely on it every moment. Faith keeps the soul alive. Without it, you suffocate spiritually. So how do you strengthen faith when it feels weak? Romans 10:17 says, "Faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ." Open the Bible, read his promises out loud. Remind your heart of who he is. Surround yourself with testimonies, stories of how God has come through for others. Worship even when you don't feel like it. Faith is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. And when life knocks you down, remember this: gold is refined in fire, diamonds are formed under pressure, and strong trees grow deep roots in storms. Hardship is not proof of God's absence. It's often the workshop of His presence. Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians 12:9, after begging God to remove his suffering, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Well, your weakness is not the end of your story. It is the place where God's power shines brightest. So the next time you doubt, remember, shadows only exist where light is nearby. The very fact that you wrestle with these questions is proof that God is stirring something in your heart. Yes, God is real. He had no beginning and has no end. Yes, you may lose faith at times, but He will never lose you. And yes, faith is crucial because it is the lifeline that pulls you toward His promises when everything else around you seems uncertain. Hold on to this. We walk by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians 5:7, sight will fail you, circumstances will scare you, but faith anchors you in a God who never changes. So don't give up. Don't let your doubts define you. Let them drive you closer to the one who is the answer to every question. Because in the end, faith is not about having every answer. Faith is about trusting the one who does.